My name is Ramzi. As you just heard, been around for a while. From 2006 until 2010, I was researching privacy, or maybe the lack thereof, in social networks. I then dropped out to found a company called IM, a social network for photographers. We grew that to around 25 million beautiful photographers creating amazing work. Company was acquired in 2021. And nowadays, I'm building a new business that is a new take on professional networking, a tool to basically help people discover, nurture, and leverage their network. Social networks, both online and in real life, have kind of been formative for me and like a thread that has accompanied me my whole life, from my childhood in Lebanon, moving to Germany, meeting people, becoming a graduate student, a researcher, an entrepreneur, an investor. And if I learned one thing on that journey, is probably social networks and a strong network is a key driver to both professional success and personal happiness as well, right? The thing is, community is like this basic human need that has been with us since the beginning of time. And that is kind of the blessing and the curse of social networks, which is what I'd like to talk to you today about. Clicker works, awesome. So social networks are have been around since pretty much the dawn of the internet. If you're old enough, you might remember Friendster or 6 Degrees, or maybe you used to party on MySpace and have your top friends so you get on the guest list to the clubs back in the day. If you're a little younger, maybe you used Facebook. Probably most of you are on Instagram or TikTok. All of these networks have, shaped us in many ways, right? Social networks help us reconnect, find long-lost friends, stay in touch with family, give us a community where we can celebrate our wins, where we can commiserate over our losses, where we can feel joy, and they're beautiful for that. And however, obviously, despite all of that, there are some downsides to this whole experience. So my personal view is that social networks are horrible. Who here uses Facebook still? Maybe a quick show of hands. So the Ü40. Cool. No offense. Who's on Insta? All right. Who has thought about leaving Insta? Why don't you? It's FOMO. It's science, right? It's dopamine. It's fear. You're afraid of losing touch, and you are kind of addicted to that rush. And that's what social networks do. I can open in LinkedIn right now, and I can guarantee you there's a very high chance I'll see a post of someone saying, I am proud to announce that blah, 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 link in comments, or, this is how you will monetize ChatGPT, you're doing it all wrong, smash that like button and subscribe. And that's the problem with social networks, right? Not to mention the bots and the trolls and, the state actors and the harassment mobs and, this whole internet of beef. They are fundamentally geared to trigger you. They are fundamentally geared to get you enraged, to get you angry, to get you upset. And that is kind of very tightly coupled into the model that they run on. The thing is, part of that reason is that we as human beings are kind of horrible, right? But that's not the whole reason. There's a science to it, right? And the science, we have to go back a little bit in time to the 1980s. A renowned but relatively unknown French academic named René Girard had just started teaching at Stanford. And Girard had this concept that he coined called mimetic theory. And the very simplified version of mimetic theory is that your desires are not intrinsic. Your desires are driven by imitation, which means, the things you want, beyond your basic kind of Maslow human needs of safety and shelter and so on, everything you aspire to, everything you desire, everything you want to get, it is not something that is innate to you as human. It is something that you see in others. And you're drawn to imitate them. You're drawn to overachieve, right? If I'd stayed in the liberal arts social research world, that would have been fine. Unfortunately, one of his students was a guy you might have heard of called Peter Thiel. And Peter Thiel saw that idea, and it stuck with him. And it stuck with him for a couple of decades, until one day he saw a pitch deck by a company called Facebook. And Facebook's difference to previous social networks was that they were focusing on true identity. And true identity is desire. And he realized that that had the chance to change the world. You see, before Facebook, our desires were drawn by kind of a small group of people, your friends, your colleagues, your family, people from your neighborhood, your town. It's a very limited kind of contagion, so you can keep it under control. With Facebook, the world now was open to you. FOMO unleashed, right? Everywhere you look, billions of people posting their best vacation photos and their most beautiful partners and their cars and their successes, and you're just addicted, right? And desire leads to engagement. Engagement leads to addiction. Addiction can be monetized. Peter Thiel saw that, and his thesis was, I invested in mimesis. The rest is kind of history. So if you look at social networks, that theory, right, it's not like every single one of these people has that scientific theory back in the back of their minds. But there was another kind of element of the last couple of decades that contributed to this problem in a big way. VCs. Any VCs here? Okay, great. VCs, cheap money. We had a couple of decades of a lot of cheap money, which meant VCs were throwing money at companies and telling them to grow. Grow mindlessly. Not to blame them, but grow mindlessly. Don't create sustainable value, just grow, and we'll figure it out. Social networks always started in the same way. If you look at all of them, they start very beautiful. They create this really inspiring feeling of, fuzzy feeling of family and community and intimacy. You feel happy, you're seeing people, you're celebrating with them. And if they stop there, that's great. And I can think of a lot of companies that did that. Flickr, one of my personal favorites, MySpace back in the day, even IM to a certain extent. The problem though is that if you stop there, you're probably gonna be a commercial failure and you're probably gonna die. So you have to take the next step. And what is the next step? Viral loops, growth hacking, all of these mechanisms to lock you in, network effects, all of this stuff geared towards getting you to stick around, to doom scroll, to comment, to like, to post, to stay there, to get angry and upset and engaged, because that's how they monetize. You see, on social networks, you're not the customer, you're the product. Your eyeballs, that is all they care about. They want you to stick there and they want to sell to you. That is why they prioritize rage over engagement, engagement over intimacy. That's why they prioritize outrage over meaningful connection. The business models of all of these networks are orthogonally opposed to your interests as a person. That's not something we can fix. That is a big problem. And we ourselves are junkies. We're addicted to this. We come back for the fix again and again. We hate ourselves for it, but we keep coming back. Bumming you all out, I know, but hopefully that'll change in a bit. You see, to kind of understand the solution, we need to also understand the problem first. We need communities. We need social networks. They're an intrinsic part of our human condition. However, we know for a fact that the models as they exist are abusive and broken. They cannot be fixed. So what do? We burn it all down and we rebuild. And thankfully, just like the problem is rooted in science, the answer is as well rooted in science and in history. Social networks have been around since the beginning of time. We're tribes. We're tribespeople. We connect, we grow communities, we support each other, we enrich each other, we help each other achieve, we collaborate, we have trust. This has been around since day one. Social networks are not about like hunting. It's not about optimizing your posts for engagement and for reach. It is about helping each other achieve. It is about enrichment. It's about agency. It is about growing together as a society. So we can't get rid of social networks, right? We need to fix them. The other side of this is that we do understand social networks in a different way. Think less social network and more network science, right? There's this concept called the information scaling threshold. And the idea behind that is we're reaching a point where there's so much data out there that we cannot compute anymore. We no longer see signal. We only see noise. This kind of leads to one of two outcomes. One, complete societal disintegration. Two, we learn how to deal with that and we move on. Now, the answer is also rooted in decades of research, from Stanley Milgram's small world experiment in the 60s to seminal papers like The Strength of Weak Ties in the 70s. Social network science research has been around for a long time, and it shows us how to model networks. It shows us how you can take a network and create value, how you can use it to grow, how to create meaningful connection and intimacy. And I would be remiss if I don't mention Dunbar there as well. I mean, Dunbar's number, you might have heard of it. The whole theory there, or simplified, is that you can maintain around 150 meaningful connections at any given moment in time. And this is also rooted in history. There's tribes back in the early days of humanity that when they grew beyond 150, they would actually split into two. The reason being, with 150 people, you can still know everyone. You can trust them, you have goals, you're aligned. Beyond that, sociopathic behavior emerges. People start lying, people start taking advantage of each other. So society is split. Now, I'm not saying you need to just know 150 people, heaven forbid. But I'm saying we need to look at science, and we need to look at network science to figure out how to rebuild social networks the right way up. I need to rush. Cool. I think the time is now. You would all agree that we're tired of social networks, right? Fatigue is there. People are aware of their privacy, they're aware of those concerns, they are ready to adopt something new, and technology is there to help us as well. So what do we need to build these networks? Two little things that are symbiotic. They cannot exist without each other, and if you have one, the other will follow. The first is agency. And by that, I mean we should be the masters of our social networks. Your network should be portable, meaning you can take it with you and go anywhere you want. If you can take your network with you, then the providers cannot monetize it, they cannot lock you in. It should be ejectable, which means if you leave, you can delete it, which means they cannot sell your data and monetize it after you leave. They are incentivized to keep you there and by creating value. Privacy is key. Your data belongs to you, nobody should be able to do anything with it. The second is alignment. And alignment goes hand in hand with agency. We need to build business models that ensure that you are the customer and not the product. Now, if the providers know that they cannot keep you in through fear, through lock-in, through addiction, they will have to build better products. They will have to build products that are in your interest, and they will have to build products that are geared towards creating value. Think of email. It's a very good example, I think. You use Gmail for free, you use Superhuman, maybe if you're corporate, you're still using Outlook. None of those platforms own your emails. You leave, you go somewhere else, you take your emails with you. I think we can build social networks in the exact same way. And I think the time is now. People are ready, the tech is there, like I said. The solutions are there. I'm not trying to be prescriptive, I don't care if it's Web3 or if it's some blockchain thing or if it's some W3C or some, all of this stuff doesn't matter. The values, the fundamental principles are the ones that matter. Agency and alignment. And that is all we need. So now it's time to kind of roll our sleeves up and build. Thank you.
We don't have any questions on Slido, but anyone in the audience who wants to ask Ramzi a question?
Gentleman over there.
Yeah, that was great. Could you, in your opinion, what are the values needed to make the good social network, regardless of the technology? What's the human element needed?
So, I think, like I said, right? I think it has to be first and foremost something that you own, so that providers are not incentivized the wrong way. I think you'll have to pay for it. And I think that's kind of a key thing, right? We were spoiled in the last decades. There's this joke about how VCs subsidize the millennial lifestyle. We've been spoiled, and we think we want things for free, but now we're starting to learn that free isn't actually free. It just means the money is coming from somewhere else. So we will need to pay, we will need to own our data, and we will need to hold the providers accountable by being able to move and choose the better service as we need.
And do you think, building on that, is there a kind of shared purpose to sort of motivate it, or is it just the connection and the belonging that drives it?
I think it's that. I mean, I think it's beautiful, right? We want community. Look at Toa. This is for me a perfect example of this trend to go towards intimate communities as opposed to kind of these massive bloated networks, right? You will get more value, and this is not a sponsored post, you'll get more value from Toa than you will from Web Summit. And it's a fact, right? So I think that is the core of it. It is a core human need, and technology is there to just manifest that in a different way.